start, I wanted to show you what was left over after I got done with all of the blocks. At this point, I've pieced all 20 blocks in the Busybody quilt, and but I had quite a bit of strips left over. I'm looking right now through my pattern to see how many strips it says I needed, because I had a few left over. So according to this, I made the twin, and it said, the pattern says I need 40 strips, but it doesn't look like that was the case. So let me see how many I have left over. I'm a little embarrassed to count them because it's a lot, but I'm just going to see, because I may need to adjust my pattern. But this is for the 2.5-inch strips. So let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So this is 12 left over of my 2.5-inch strips. Let me see what's left of my 1.5-inch strips. It looks like it's probably about the same. I won't count those on camera, but it looks like it's probably about the same. There are a lot of things that could account for this. I was probably thinking about if you had 40 inches of fabric, and that could account for it. Also, some fabrics have a wider selvage. This has a pretty narrow selvage, so there was not a lot of waste at the end of the strips. So that could account for it as well. So don't be surprised if you use a pattern and you have this much left over. I'm going to take this, part of this 2.5-inch strips, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to use those for my binding, so I'm not too stressed about having that much left over. These 1.5-inch strips, I'm sure I'll find something that I can do with them. I'll just leave them in here for the time being. I also have the ones that I set out for the border as well, but today we're just focusing on piecing the inside of the quilt. We'll do the border next week. So right now I'm going to show you the layouts that I picked. I laid them out 3 times, and I kind of changed it up each time so that I could have different, I could have the colors more evenly dispersed. So when you're doing this, you may want to take a picture of it and walk away from it for a while, and then look at the picture and see if there are any colors that you feel like need to be switched around. I'm going to put a picture of the first layout I did, which was completely random, and then the second layout I did, and then I'll show you the final in just a minute. Here's the final layout that I've chosen for my quilt. I tried to make sure first that the dark black sashing here was sort of evenly dispersed in the quilt, and then the second thing was that I saw a lot of red, and so I tried to disperse the red a little bit more evenly. It's still kind of like just 2 rows, but I'm happy with that. I think I can live with that. It'll be fine. My next step is going to be to sew this quilt together in rows. So I'm going to go up to the top row, and I'm going to put those right sides together, and I'm going to stitch down the side. So I'll do each row individually, first, second, third, fourth, and fifth, using the chain piecing that I normally do. And then I'm going to show you all the rows before I put the rows together. As I prepare to put these first 2 rows together, it's important to determine where our seams need to meet. And for these 2, it's this seam right here. These 2 seams are going to meet in the middle, And I have my finger on each of these. You can pin them if you want. I don't think I'm going to pin. There's one thing you need to be aware of. Because of the way that I have pressed these, in this case, these seams are not going to nest. They're going to be right on top of each other, so it'll create a little bit of bulk. I'm not going to be too worried about it because I'm not going to go back and make sure that each one nests. You might choose to do that, but I'm just not going to do it. Just in this case, I can see that they're just going to be right on top of each other. I'll do my best to match the seams, but it is not absolutely necessary. So as I get ready to go put that on the sewing machine, I'm still using my 1/4 inch seam. I actually have something from another quilt or a future project as my leader ender. So I'm just going to go ahead and put this in. I'm just going to line up the ends here and do my best with the 1/4 inch seam. They should be pretty consistent. So as long as I have consistent 1/4 inch seams, the pieces should be fine. Now, if you did not, if you chose not to square up your individual pieces, this, before you put the blocks together, this will be where those, if anything shows up, this will be where it'll happen, because your pieces might not line up perfectly. So you may want to, before you get to this step, if you didn't square up the blocks yet, now would be a good time before you start this step. Okay, so I'll pull this out and press it, and hopefully we'll have a nice juncture. Right now I'm just kind of holding it here in the middle. And in this case, since the fabrics are the same, it shouldn't matter that much if it's not exactly perfect. So I'm going to finish this row, and then I'll show you what it looks like. The entire first row is finished. Let's see if I can... There it is, all stitched together. The seam allowances in the corners, I think they look okay so far. I only have 4 more rows to go, and then I'll show them to you. 4 of the 5 rows are completed, but I'm going to go ahead and start at the top and start sewing these rows together. So I will show you the interior of the quilt top when it is finished. The quilt top is all put together now, except for borders. I'll be adding borders next week, so stay tuned for that video. If you have any questions about this process, there is another there are several videos in the series. Please check those out. You can also leave comments in the section below. Thumbs up this video, share it with your friends, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching. Bye!